Alright people, so today's the day that we're going to CasWell the Ducati's gas tank. These gas tanks are made out of plastic and they have problems with the effects of ethanol, which is the fuel. All the fuel in the US has ethanol in it. So these tanks tend to create bubbles on the side or expand. And this has been an ongoing problem with Ducati and Aprilia. What they've been doing is they've been coating with CasWell. There was a huge recall on them at the beginning when these bikes first came out, but this recall is over. This bike is now 9 years old. I don't think this is the recall tank. The person literally had the bike in the living room. Anyways, the solution to fix this is you can either spend $2,000 on an aluminum tank or use CasWell. This CasWell gas tank sealer, this is a permanent seal for gas tanks, and it withstands ethanol and racing fuel, so it's exactly what we need for a plastic tank. And these are some of the supplies that we need. First thing we're going to do is we're going to wrap it in Glad Wrap, and then a layer of Glad Wrap, a layer of aluminum foil, another layer of Glad Wrap. This will protect the paint. We're going to remove the cap, we're going to remove the fuel pump at the bottom, and then we're going to rinse it with hot water and dish soap, and then we're going to shake in these, you call them drywall screws, to help kind of create abrasion inside of the tank so that the sealant would fit better or seal better or adhere better. We'll do that several times. You could use acetone or Xylene, but CasWell doesn't really recommend it. You got to be extremely cautious because these are plastic tanks, and that type of chemical is very aggressive towards plastic, so you need to be careful. It says to make sure you don't let that solvent on the tank for more than 10 minutes. So this tank is not that bad. I'm not going to use any solvents. I'm going to use what they say, which soap and water, hot water, screws. No need for acetone, no need for Xylene. You can use that on like tanks that maybe have been sitting outside for 10 years with gas in it and it gunked up. But it's not going to happen on these tanks. Alright, let's begin. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to remove my gas caps and I'm going to dump the gas. So I have my dish soap, I have my hot water. Go ahead and rinse this guy out. So this is inside the gas tank. There's not really much going on there. There's these two breather hoses right here, 1, 2, and they go down up to the top. So there's not really any holes you really have to worry about clogging when you apply the CasWell. Just seal this main fuel pump hole and the input hole over there, and then you can CasWell the inside. The inside of this tank has a lot of crevices, so gotta make sure you take your time when applying the CasWell. You can actually see some bubbles and blistering. There's one big one right there. That's caused by the ethanol. So this tank is not that bad, but sooner or later it's going to expand and blister. So the next step is to create abrasions on the inside of the gas tank. So we're going to use the drywall screws. So it's been roughly 24 hours since we cleaned the tank, let it dry, used drywall screws to create some abrasions. It's been over 24 hours now. I put another layer of Glad Wrap and I taped the areas that I believe I'm going to be setting it on the table as I rotate it with the CasWell mix in. We're almost ready for the CasWell. I'm using some Play-Doh. I'm going to kind of create the general shape of this hole And then I'm going to wrap this in saran wrap so none of this Play-Doh gets stuck anywhere. Alright, so this is my little plug, little saran wrap, and we're going to use this to seal off this part of the tank for this lower part of the tank. And then I think I'm going to let it drain out of this hole because for this hole up here, there's actually a lip. So if I flip it upside down and try to drain the CasWell out of this hole, there's actually a big, like, 1/4-inch lip before it touches this top. So there's just going to be a lot of resin just chilling there. So I think this is the better spot to get rid of. Okay, now I'm in the process of applying this Nashua waterproof tape. We're going to use this to seal this bottom end off for the CasWell. Alright, so it looks like I'm pretty much ready to go. It's very important that the temperature of the tank is between, they say 70 to 85. I think this perfect temperature is 75. The tank right now inside is 77, which is good. You want to make sure that your fluid, your CasWell stuff, is about the same temperature as your tank. You want it at the same temperature, and it's room temperature. If it's less than 70, it'd be too thick. And if it's hotter, it'd be too thin, and it'll dry too fast. The temperature of my house is pretty hot. Up here it's around 84, 85. But in this area it's a little bit cooler. The tank itself, 78. Inside the tank is 76. We're right around there. My fluid on the outside, 80. So we're right there at that point where it might be a little too thin. But I really don't have a choice. That AC is set to full blown, but it just doesn't get cold enough. It's 100 degrees outside. I'm in Arizona. It's kind of inevitable, but I'm gonna mix it and then we can start doing this. So I have my general purpose solvent. If for some reason this is too thick, which I don't think it'll be because it's really warm, you put, for a motorcycle CasWell, you put 1 ounce to thin it out. 15 milliliters is half an ounce. 1 tablespoon is half an ounce. But I have a feeling it's going to be a little thin because it's pretty warm in here. You know, like I said, the temperature in the air, 77 degrees, 78. And thankfully the gas tank, 76. 75 is the sweet spot. So we're going to go ahead and mix. We're going to mix it in here. We're going to use our little mixer. You want to mix it for at least 2 minutes. And then you have about 30 to 45 minutes until it kind of solidifies and gets solid. So you want to make sure you flip it around for a good amount of time. And in between this, I'm going to remove my output hole. I'm going to look inside and make sure everything's coated properly. But I feel like this is a pretty good viscosity. I don't think I need to add any thinner. Go ahead and dump it in the tank. It's pretty thick, or pretty thin actually, but not much I can do. Got the plug. I like to be able to see what the hell I'm doing and make sure I coat it very well. Still pretty low viscosity. Okay, now that we applied the CasWell, I have it angled so it'll drip out on this plate. Remember these little holes here, we need to poke out. Need a smaller nail. Do not drop this nail in there. If you do, you're effed. Very careful. There's one here and there's one on the other side. At this point it's still soft, so you could poke your hole in it, remove it. If you do this later time, then you may have to drill it out. So take a look at the inside after we CasWelled it. You can see some of the bubbles that kind of dried up that way. It's gonna be hard to hear, but it's very brittle. It's very hard. Even when I touch some of those bubbles, it's just really solid. That's how it should be. This is about a little over 24 hours after. Next thing for me to do is kind of sand this down, because that's where the fuel pump goes. It needs to be nice and smooth, and I'll get rid of some of this excess.